According to the United States Census Bureau, the likelihood of developing a disability is over 50% for all individuals over the age of 40, so it is important to understand the need for employers to integrate more diversity into their workforce.
You know, people with disabilities have great track records in employment. They actually do much better than people without disabilities, and their longevity with an employer, their loyalty to an employer is much higher.
Cornell University's Institute of Employment and Disability published a report in 2013 saying 41% of the Maryland workforce had some kind of disability. A study published in the Journal of Occupational Rehabilitation shows the employment rate among these individuals is about 20% less than that of the general population. These disabilities may be physical or mental in nature and include both permanent and temporary conditions as defined by the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. Jackie Gast, director of the Eastern Shore Business Leadership Network, helps Delmarva residents with disabilities find employment.
Our vision is to have the unemployment rate of people with disabilities to be the same as those without disabilities.
A number of local agencies on Delmarva provide job training and employment opportunities to residents with disabilities. There are also local organizations like Blind Industries and Services of Maryland that teach independent living skills to individuals with more specialized needs. According to their 2013 annual report, the Blind Industries and Services of Maryland employs about 500 workers with disabilities in 13 locations. The Salisbury branch has about 90 employees. Roy Sonny has worked for Blind Industries and Services of Maryland for 5 years. Though legally blind, Sonny has nearly doubled his expected productivity without ever requesting an accommodation.
Well, I put the draw cord in the bottom of the jackets. They want me to strive for like 160 a day, but on average I do anywhere from 240 to 270 a day.
BISM also promotes independent living, teaching skills like Braille comprehension, cooking, and mobility training for people with visual impairments. Russell Endicott, Associate Director of Career Services at Salisbury University, knows firsthand the challenges of managing a career with a disability.
There were a lot of different issues that I had to overcome because when I was injured down at Ocean City, and I had a spinal cord injury, and I broke my neck, and I was paralyzed from my neck down. That was for 2 months. I had no feeling whatsoever, and the doctors thought I was never going to regain that. So you're talking a very almost unworkable injury where accommodations would be almost impossible. Things started to come back. I started feeling better. The university, I was off work for over a year. The university kept my job for that period of time. Very fortunate to have that benefit, and they worked with me the entire time.
According to the Americans with Disabilities Act, employers must provide reasonable accommodations to workers with disabilities.
There is a person that works in Salisbury. He has a mobility disability. This company is a manufacturing company. They do fire drills, which every company should do, occasionally, and practice those fire drills. Well, they found that this individual was unable to get out of the facility, had a wheelchair, which they had anyway. He worked in a team, and so they just had, actually one of his team members volunteered to be the person that would get the wheelchair, bring it over to him, and then wheel him out.
According to the Job Accommodation Network, half of all workplace accommodations cost less than $50, with about 30% of accommodations costing the employer nothing. Accommodations may include updating existing facilities to provide wheelchair accessibility, special tools like magnifying glasses or telecommunication devices, or equipment modifications, such as altering the height of a desk or chair.
There is a cost that that is associated with all accommodations. Whether it be a financial cost or it be just something as simple as moving office furniture around. But if that cost is going to be so high that it's going to hurt that employer or keep that employer from doing the things that they normally do, then they don't have to do that accommodation.
The ADA protects the privacy of a job candidate when applying for a job. Potential employers cannot investigate an individual's disability during the interview process unless a candidate requests an accommodation. If this occurs, the potential employer has the right to ask for information concerning the nature of the disability insofar as it affects the worker's ability to perform essential job functions.
We advise them how to approach like the job search or the internship search, how to disclose, if you do have a disability or not to disclose, what are employers going to look for? Is your disability going to hurt you, in your job search? Because you don't want to reveal your disability if it's not going to be a problem with the job. Employers have no right to ask about a disability unless the person can't perform the duties of that particular job.
Gast says there are many advantages to hiring workers with disabilities.
You find that retention is greater when you make that good match. Productivity is the same or better. Safety records are the same or better. A lot of times you're going to get good problem solvers because they may have to get to the same place but a little bit differently, a little bit more creatively, and because they've had to deal with it for a while. So there's a lot of advantages to employing someone with a disability.
The Equal Employment Opportunity Commission handles formal complaints against an employer who fails to comply with ADA standards. The complaint must be filed within 180 days of the incident. After a complaint is filed, EEOC employees decide whether an investigation is warranted. During this process, it is automatically assumed that all requested accommodations are reasonable, unless the business owner can demonstrate that it would produce an undue hardship.
I mean, if you take into account a lost year and a half of work, and you take into account what they bought here, you're looking at probably close to $100,000 in accommodation. And the majority of that being, the time off. The physical accommodations, I mean, the computers, you're talking $600-700 for a couple computer. A chair, $1,000. Another chair, $1,000. The keyboards and all those kind of things. So, the biggest issue was they had to replace me with another person for over a year.
During the investigation, the EEOC may ask the employer for personnel files and company policies, as well as visit the job site to conduct witness interviews. If the investigation proves discrimination occurred, the worker will receive a notice of their right to sue the employer in federal court within 90 days.
There's ADA accommodations that make that mandatory or required that those kind of things be available, and they're pretty much non-issues.
This is Zach Strauss reporting from Salisbury.